I'm here with Sargeant Mattusack, Long Beach Police Department, and I'm going to ask him some questions about homelessness in Long Beach, gentrification, and some current homeless issues that are going on, and some different things. But before we talk about what's going on in the context of Long Beach, I'd like to repeat some information about what's going on. Now, I'm a master's student, and my thesis, in our discipline, it's a portfolio. It's a thesis, big paper mixed with a defense of that, and also mixed with a comprehensive exam. Well, my topic happened to be best practices for managing conflict between the homeless, the police, and also city government. So, I looked, when I was looking for peer-reviewed sources and stuff before, I looked at, certain keywords, and it came up with lots and lots of results. Well, yesterday I looked up the words homelessness, criminalization, and peer-reviewed in Google, and it netted over 234,000 results. That's just something interesting. So it appears that criminalization and homelessness, that this is a big deal. Okay, I looked on MarketWatch. MarketWatch says that millions of Americans are one paycheck away from the street, and only 39% of Americans said that they have $1,000 to cover car repairs or trip to the ER. Not good. So I'm assuming that what's going on in other cities, and in light of this Martin versus Boise thing that they want to take to the Supreme Court, and Levon versus LA, and Jones versus LA before, and some other cases, I'm pretty sure that this is nationally. Okay, look, so let's go Bible before we get started. It says in Ezekiel 16:49 that Sodom was destroyed because of arrogance, being overfed, unconcerned for the poor, or unconcerned, and they did not help the poor and the needy. So the Lord took them away as he saw fit. It says, also in the story of Lazarus and the rich man who was burning in hell, it says in Luke 16:19 through 31, it basically talks about the conditions that Lazarus the beggar lived in and what happened to the rich man. Oh yeah, there's tons of verses in the Bible about what happens to those who hurt the poor, oppress them, but also the blessings of those who help the poor. Now Ezekiel 4:16 through 17 says, God breaks the staff of bread for godless people. Also Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26 have a list of blessings and cursings. Now, let's see.
For the sake of time, do you mind if we move on to the questions?
Yeah, I had to preface it. Now, Officer Mattusack, I've interviewed a lot of homeless people, advocates, activists, people, all kinds of different people from different walks, and they all seem to share the opinion that the police department, the city of Long Beach, and, and city people like the public works seem to target the homeless. And I've talked to Deputy Attorney Sarah Green. She denies this, and of course, it's been denied. But how do you explain a situation that appears to support that?
Well, I think it's unfortunate if people feel that way. I can tell you that, as a police officer, as an employee for the city of Long Beach, we're responsible to make sure that everybody in the city is safe. We're responsible for making sure that the constitutional rights of all the members of the people that live in the city are protected. And that's what the mission of the police department is that public safety. And we do that with a large group of partners, not only from within the city, but within the private sector, as well as faith-based organizations.
Well, I'm familiar with quality of life, and I used to know Merle McGee and Seminara. They're gone now, and I don't know about the new one, but it appears that when I see these quality of life guys, they're basically running up on the homeless, and they're like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna write you a ticket if you don't vamoose, because we put up a sign a few days ago that says you got to scram. I mean, how does that improve the quality of life?
Sure. So what I can tell you is that currently we have 4 quality of life officers. The 2 officers that you mentioned have retired, and they sort of pioneered this field.
They were good people.
They were very good people, and they sort of pioneered the field for us here in Long Beach, and they were able to help a lot of people. So we tried to build on their success as they retired out and we brought in new police officers. So now 4 officers are working quality of life full-time in each of the patrol divisions. And then through our contract with LA County Metro, we also have an additional 2 officers that are able to work quality of life related specifically to the Blue Line here in Long Beach. When we do interact with people who are experiencing homelessness out in the field, and I think what you're referring to typically are what we call encampment cleanups. And you're talking about having people move after something's been posted. So that process is something that we're a part of as part of the larger interdepartmental effort here in Long Beach that consists of the health department, public works department, and the police department, and sometimes Parks and Rec, depending on where people are keeping their belongings. So we'll work with all those departments to make sure that if there is an encampment on public property, that it gets properly posted, and then the people that are staying in that encampment have the opportunity to talk to an outreach worker, and that we provide them with a location should their belongings be taken.
Here's the thing, and I've been a volunteer at several of the agencies here, and I'm very familiar with the MSC and different things that are going on, and one of the things that bothers me is there's not enough resources that the quality of life people could offer people. They don't have 500 or 1,000 shelter beds. They can't say, hey, you're homeless. Oh, I'm going to give you a long-term solution. I'm going to give you a bed. They can't offer a job. What they can say is, oh, if we can find you a shelter bed, we'll put you there. Or, hey, if you're mentally ill, we're going to go and help you get help with that or whatnot, or substance abuse. But, when are they going to have enough resources to actually, make a meaningful impact? Because you can't fix the quality of life if you don't have the stuff to give people. And when are they going to start, one of my solutions for my portfolio was you don't have the cops and you don't have the Department of Mental Health spearhead the thing, or Health and Human Services, because it's been traumatic for a lot of these people, dealing with law enforcement, dealing with these kind of people. You have former homeless that have degrees now that you've been there. You have them individually lead the charge. You don't show up in a van or a truck and say, hey, you know what? We're from the government. We're here to help you. No, what you do is you have people that can relate, say, look, assuming you have enough services, you say, look, we have an abundance of services. We'd like to help you if you want help.
Sure.
But
so I would just say that, one of the officers that was working quality of life for a long time on the east side of our city, his story, without getting too personal into his details, but he had a period in his life where he was down on his luck and he didn't necessarily have a place to stay all the time. So he was able to go out and personally relate to the people that were living on the street. We've also been able to, provide some training to our quality of life officers, and the way that we deploy them out in the field, being not in a black and white police car, we don't put them in the standard police uniform. We're trying to make it so that the people who are experiencing homelessness are more comfortable interacting with them, and the officers are trained and take the time to build relationships with people. So it's not, Sargeant Mattusack coming out there and talking to you, it's Eric that's coming out and talking. And so we think that that's important, and we also think that it's important that the police department is not the lead on these issues, and that's why we partner with our Health and Human Services department.
Why should they? Well, excuse me. No, why should they be the leader also? People have had traumatic experiences with them, with the MSC and stuff. And I mean, for the record, when I was homeless, the MSC, was a little bit better before. Now you have to have case management to even get a shower. Same thing with the village. I think it's ridiculous. If somebody, wants to walk a half a mile across the bridge, to get a shower, and then they're told you got to get case management to do that. That's ridiculous. There isn't enough services in the city, tangible ones. I was at COA yesterday, and they told me basically some of the new developments want to shut them down. The Linden, I guess, wants to shut them down because they don't like the clientele. So it's ridiculous.
The people of the state of California and people of Los Angeles County have agreed to tax increases over the last few years that are going to allow us to build more shelters. They're going to allow us to have places for safe parking and things like that. And as a police department, we sit on an interdepartment team that talks about the best ways to implement those projects, as well as how can we work with nonprofit organizations that are going to help us accomplish our mission. we don't criminalize homelessness, right? We don't
Oh.
want people to consider, someone who's homeless to be a criminal. So when we go out and interact with people, our interaction is usually very short, and then we hand those people off to either a nonprofit or to the MSC or to any of the other partners that we have, because being homeless, as you know, is not a crime. And
It's been criminalized. There's an extensive body of literature that says that, and people like Foscarinas et al., there's a list of all that visibly homeless people are forced systematically out of the public eye. And, if you look at, that, for example, Exhibit A, you see that big, nice building, you see all these developments, they don't want somebody who's a bum, quote unquote, to be sleeping on public property. So you're telling me that, the police department, you're not going to follow orders. If your supervisor says, remove that bum, you need to, you're telling me you're going to tell him, hey, get bleeped. That's an unconstitutional order. I'm not going to follow it. Are you telling? And how many police? How many police officers?
I can tell you that at our police department, my boss would never tell me that, because we are so good at training and keeping up on case law, because we have a relationship with our city attorney's office, and she keeps up on it. Like you mentioned, Sarah Green.
She told me about the training.
Yeah,
and stuff.
so I think we're in a position where that's not going to take place.
Okay.
We also have an educational component now that we're working on for community groups and residents to understand what the laws are related, because generally speaking, right, not everyone's an expert at constitutional law, and that's really where a lot of these issues are based out of is constitutional law. So Sarah has done a great job. She started talking to community groups, talking to business associations.
Hopefully they listen.
So that we're not even getting that complaint or that concern, because the person who is concerned about somebody who's living in front of their business or whatever is calling the health department and not the police department, because that person needs outreach. They don't need enforcement.
But if there's not enough shelter beds, and it's an abstract concept. I don't think there's ever going to be enough, shelter per se to take care of all the homeless. It's a nice idea, but is there ever going to be 1,000 beds in this city?
I don't know if there's ever going to be 1,000 beds,
or
but
500. There's not enough.
We're moving towards a full-time shelter. We anticipate that to be open, soon. That's a hard word to describe, but we're looking at winter shelters again this winter, and then the city is going to open up a full-time year-round shelter. Money has been identified. They are looking for locations, and that is a process that we are looking forward to. And in the meantime, we have relationships with nonprofit organizations, with faith-based organizations that help us out. I think, you mentioned some of the officers that used to work this detail. They started building those relationships back in the day.
Well,
and
what the thing was, it's somebody. I shouldn't say that on the record. That's what's it called? But the thing is, though, I've talked to different. I love McGee. If you piss McGee off, I don't know. I heard he's been terminated or something.
He retired.
Yeah, and Seminara too. Seminara was a little bit more moderate. McGee, he would, if you made him angry and you were drunk, he'd harass the hell out of you.
I don't know about that.
Oh yes,
I think
your body language, bro.
I think that. I think it's funny the way you.
He was hardcore.
Describe him.
He was nice to me because I didn't act an idiot. But there was same thing with Officer Arroyo. I forget some other ones on the bikes. Those are some other ones, and I've talked to a bunch of homeless people, and especially around Lincoln Park, and what bothers me is it appears that there's a culture out here where all homeless people are put into the same boat, because not everybody's a junkie. There's people I know that were homeless that have MBAs. There's people I know, for example, somebody who's a disabled retired longshoreman, and he's on the street because of the high cost of living. Hell, what is it like? $1,200, for a studio.
So I think that's the benefit of our quality of life unit, is that we are able to dedicate officers to that function. They're able to get to know the people that are experiencing homelessness in the city and find out what specifically is going on with them in their case, and work to find solutions for them as an individual, and not blanket solutions for an entire population. And just as an example of some of those things that we're doing, there's a guy that we've worked with now pretty extensively. we were able to facilitate getting him identification, social security card. He was able to get a Section 8 voucher. He was in a position where he had some warrants from prior behaviors that, obviously he was written tickets or whatever. He didn't go to his court date, and now he's got these small warrants. We were able to work with our quality of life officers and the court to set him new court dates, work with other agencies to set him new court dates. He just moved into his Section 8 housing, and people within the city that have been helping him even went as so far as to donate some furniture to his new apartment in Section 8 housing. So because the city has taken a stance of service to these folks that are out there, we're able to build relationships with them to the point where we're able to identify specific needs for specific people and work towards it. Now, there's a lot of people who need help, and we have to take it one at a time, right? It's just like...
So your position is that there is enough resources, and that on a case-by-case basis, the city is willing to, if they see average guy in the street that's homeless, they're willing to approach him, and they actually have the services. They can house him if they do. Because I was looking at some stuff about LA and this place, and part of my thing for the literature review is what the MSC does, and and their data. So you're telling me that the quality of life people and the partners between them, there's enough shelter beds, there's enough services to adequately help everybody they approach. Because what's the point of the quality of life thing and the partnerships if they don't have if they don't have the resources? Do they have the resources?
It's a process, right? And
it's a process.
What we've done is we've been successful in making enough contacts and making enough partnerships with people in our community that we have been able to help. Now, there's going to be people that aren't going to want to receive help. There's going to be people on that first contact, right?
Well, the people that do want to receive help.
Yeah, and so the people that do want to receive help, our process is that the first place they go is the MSC, and and we work with the MSC in order to provide them with transportation if needed, get them to appointments if they need to go to a DMV appointment, whatever the case may be. And if they're not comfortable with the police officer, it's our partners maybe with the HEART team in the fire department, or it's a nonprofit organization. So it all depends on the comfort level of the individual and who they're willing to work with. In the example that I just gave you, that person wasn't willing to come to the police station in order to get cited out for his warrants. So what we did is we sent a police officer to the MSC to meet with him and his caseworker. He got cited out for his Long Beach warrants, and then the officer offered to drive him to the sheriff's department to get cited out for some sheriff's warrants. And so it was all about building that relationship.
My thing is, though, personally, I have intimate experience being a patron of some of these places, and I can tell you that, the MSC, all they really did for me was give me a few bus tokens, and I had case management, so it was bull crap. I think,
sorry you feel that way. It
was BS. They didn't offer
like
me.
You're doing well now.
I'm blessed. Thank you, Jesus. I'm blessed that I have a good family. I'm blessed by the grace of God that good things are happening. That wasn't because of Long Beach. That wasn't because of the city. That wasn't because of city services. I'm blessed. But the thing that bothers me is I went to these places and they can't do jack. You have to push a little bit. You have to basically advocate for them to do the basic stuff. And, that's if they have the services. It was a joke to me.
I think it's important to just note that the City of Long Beach and the Long Beach Police Department is making advancements.
I know,
supporting people experiencing homelessness.
Because of lawsuits, I have a little,
If you won't mind, we will be finishing the interview shortly if you have one or two more questions.
Oh, it's been 19 minutes, not, what's it called? Don't I get 30 minutes, or?
Yeah, we'll be finishing it shortly, so if you have a couple more questions.
I'll be finishing shortly, absolutely, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask you 3 more questions.
Sounds good.
The first one is, the case of Martin et al. Versus Boise, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for that case, would the police department still be trying to make these advancements that they're trying to make?
I believe so.
Oh, and what evidence do you have for that and the efficacy of, that they would that would be the case?
Well, our quality of life unit started long before Martin v. Boise, and Martin v. Boise really only specifically, targets cases where law enforcement agencies are trying to enforce camping statutes. So there's a lot of things that we do outside of the enforcement of camping statutes that deal with people who are experiencing homelessness. So that one case, although it has an effect on how we do business specifically related to camping enforcement, it doesn't have the greater effect of the other laws that we enforce or the other ways that we do engagement and support for people who are experiencing homelessness.
Okay, last question. What kind of evidence, hardcore academic evidence, statistics, that stuff, and stuff that's measurable, what kind of evidence do you have that can prove the efficacy, of what your approach, the city's approach to homelessness, and what the quality of life people are doing? Because, there's no point in having a program of any kind if it can't be measured, and
Sure.
What proves that it's okay?
So one of the things that we do as a city every 2 years, and now we're transitioning to a yearly program, is a homeless count, where we have people that go out and actually count the number of people who are experiencing homelessness in Long Beach. And so with the last homeless count, our numbers stayed relatively flat, whereas a lot of the jurisdictions around us went up. So if you compare our numbers to some of the jurisdictions around us, and we're staying flat compared to other jurisdictions going up, I think that shows that we're doing something correctly in the area. And then with a lot of things that are human based, right? It's about, I think, the stories that people are telling and the support that we're getting from the members of the community who are just generally saying, and I know it's not scientific, but that things are heading in the right direction. And that's, I think, one of the main things that we look at when we're talking about interacting with people and things like that is a lot of these things are outside of our control as a police department. So we just look at how that's impacting our community, and we're trying to keep the residents, the business owners, the people who are experiencing homelessness, the visitors to our city as safe as possible. And I think that the programs that we're implementing are working, and we're constantly working to refine them and make them better.
Well, let's hope so, because if Martin versus Boise happens in the Supreme Court and Boise loses, then people are going to have even more rights to sue. All right, well, thank you for your time, and God bless. And
Thanks.